Let's take a breath together. We are still moving through this month of dealing with the kindness factor, that generosity of spirit that we've been talking about all month. And it's pretty hard to have kindness, the premeditated kindness that I've been talking about, and unconditional love that I've been talking about, without being open. Without being open, we have to be open. We have to be wide open to experience kindness. Can you imagine expressing kindness when you're closed to somebody and you're trying to be kind to them? That really doesn't work. And it's pretty hard to receive kindness from somebody if we are not open. And so today I'm going to be talking about wide open, just being wide open. Let's take a breath and just think about being wide open. Wide open. Ernest Holmes says that openness is the first step to embodiment. Openness is the first step to embodiment. Being open means to be accessible, to be available. And so if openness is the first step to embodiment, keep in mind that it works both ways. It works in all ways. It can be the first step to embodiment of something that we want to have happen, or that we want to experience, or that we want to be a part of, want to have as a part of our lives. Or it can be the first step of embodiment to something that we don't want to be a part of our lives. So openness is the first step of embodiment. So we want to be wide open, and we want to be aware, consciously aware of what we're being wide open to. What are we attracting in? And we are attracting in that which is consistent with our thoughts, that which is consistent with our consciousness, that which is consistent with the tenor of our thoughts, the tenor of our vibration. All of that is what accounts for the things that we attract into our experience. And so I'm inviting us to be mindful always of what it is we really want, what it is we really want to experience, and then being open to that. Being open to that, not trying to figure out how we're going to get it, not trying to figure out anything, just being open to receive, being open to receive. And as I'm thinking about being open and not being concerned about how and where and when and all those things, I'm thinking about the visioning that we did last week that I mentioned earlier. You know, we came together. And we will continue to do this once a month, but we came together last week for the community visioning to just vision for God's idea, to catch God's vision of itself as Creative Living Fellowship, to catch God's vision for Creative Living Fellowship. And coming together to do that, in order to catch the vision, we got to be open to it. We got to be open to whatever it is, not trying to figure it out, not trying to plan it, not trying to do anything, just being open to it being revealed to us. And so that's what we came together to do last week. And so for those of you who've been participating in the visioning, and those who haven't and plan to, or those who are visioning on your own, be open. Be open, because God's vision comes through not just in the time that we're sitting together as a group or sitting down in the formal process of going through the steps of visioning. God's vision is dynamic. It is always unfolding. It is always available to each one of us. It can come up for us while we're in the shower. It can come up for us while we're driving on the freeway. It can come up for us while we're taking a nap. Whatever the case may be, whatever it is, however it is, that God's vision is to be revealed to us. If we're open to it, it comes through in so many different ways. And so I'm inviting all of us in this community, I'm inviting all and beyond, to be open so that God's vision for Creative Living Fellowship can be revealed to and through each one of us, and being open to it being revealed to and through each one of us. We are in the midst of big change, huge change. We don't know where we're going or when. That's none of our business. God knows where we're going and when. What we know is to be open to it being revealed to us. What we know is to be in that place of trust. What we know is to be in that place of knowing that there's that power and that presence that is always protecting us, that is always directing us, that is always guiding us. And so to the degree that we are open to it, then it is guiding us every step of the way. It is showing us every step of the way. It is showing us step by step what its vision of itself as Creative Living Fellowship. And because visioning is a process of personal transformation, and what God's vision is of each of our individual lives. Because if each one of us does not transform, if each one of us does not change, if each one of us is not open and available to releasing and letting go of whatever we need to release and let go, to embracing those things that we need to embody, if we're not open to change, if we're not open to doing something different, there's no way for God's vision to come through. Because the only way it can come through, as I've said many, many times before, is through each one of us. And so just being open is what I'm inviting us to do. Be open. Be open. Take a breath. Every time you take a breath, you're opening up even more. We're opening up even more. So let's start with, how do we start that whole opening process? How do we start that whole opening process? Let me give you 3 ways. The first thing we want to do is open our arms. Open our arms. Now, you may wonder, what does that have to do with anything? But think about just opening our arms and what it does. It just expands our chest area. You can take a deep breath with open arms. So open our arms first. Open our arms first. You know, our arms are so communicative. Our arms are so communicative, particularly when it comes to body language. You can watch a person's arms and determine where they are. How many people sit? How many times do you sit with your arms crossed? And arms crossed indicates blocking out something or blocking in something. It's a way of protecting ourselves. You know, not 93% of communication is nonverbal. 93% of communication is nonverbal, and 55% of that is body language. 55% of nonverbal communication is body language. And our arms are big indicators of what's going on. You know, when one of the big places I've learned about body language and just watching people and recognizing the need to maintain open arms, or to have our arms be open, is at church. I've spoken at churches. I've been a guest speaker at churches across the country for years. And one of the things I notice in church is people will close their arms at certain times. They don't just sit there all the time. Some people sit with their arms folded all the time. But there are other people who will close their arms at certain points. And I've noticed that it's either because it's something they didn't want to hear, it's something they didn't like, it's something that they didn't want to feel, or something that blocks. And closing our arms is almost an unconscious response. It's like a knee-jerk response to something. We don't want to hear, we immediately close our arms. There was one church that I used to go to that there was a man who sat on the front row, and as soon as I would stand up, he would close his arms, he would fold his arms. And he kept his arms folded the entire time that I spoke. And then as soon as I sat down, he opened his arms. So, you know, I wasn't offended by that. It was just that whatever caused him to do that, whatever he was trying to block, or whatever he was trying to hold in, or whatever he was showing resistance to was really on him. But it was very telling that he did that. And then I noticed that at other times I've been a member or a congregant or a visitor at a church, and I've noticed how people will close their arms if a minister says a certain thing, or if there's a certain song that comes up, or whatever the case may be, people close their arms. And then when that's over, they open their arms. And so I'm inviting you to take a look at, when are you closing your arms? When are you folding your arms? What's happening? What are you blocking? What are you holding in? What are you holding back? What are you trying to keep from entering, or keep from leaving your experience right then and right there? So it's very important for us in being open. It's the first thing to start with, is opening our arms. That's not blocking out anything. Another thing about opening our arms is that when we open up and expand our chest, it gives us an opportunity to breathe, and it creates an opening for God to work in and through us, for God to move freely in and through us, for God to flow freely in and through us. And so the more that we can open our arms and open our chest and just practice sometimes sitting at home or wherever you are. Don't drive with your arms open like this, but wherever you are, just open your arms and just sit watching TV with your arms open. and see what happens. See how you feel. Really pay attention to how you're feeling, and really pay attention to how to what happens to your mindset once you open your arms. Because not only does our body language speak to other people, it also speaks to us. And so we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful of what we're doing with our bodies, and our arms is the way for us to make that determination. So sometimes just make a habit of opening your arms. Sometimes if you're about to go into meditation, open your arms and take a deep breath. Open your arms and take a deep breath, and just feel the freedom that we have in this area, in the solar plexus area. Just opening up, opening our arms, freeing up that whole space so that God has a place of expression. The second thing we want to do is to open our minds. Open our minds. Open our minds. When our minds are closed, that's one of the things that happens that makes us close our arms. But I consciously made the decision to start with the outer, which is the arms, as we work our way inward, because the outer expresses what's happening inwardly. So when we close our arms, what's happening in our minds? What are we thinking about? What's on your mind when you close your arms? What's on your mind that's making you respond that way? Respond with closing your arms. What's on your mind that's making you resist? That's making you feel a need to resist? What's on your mind that's making you feel fearful? Because sometimes it's just fear that makes us close our arms. What's on your mind that's making you sad? What's on your mind that's making you angry? Whatever it is, but by being aware and opening our minds means that we open our minds to really see the truth. We open our minds, it's like the mind's eye that we're opening. We're opening our mind, opening the mind's eye so that we can just really see what's happening with us. My arms were closed right then. What made me close my arms? I was trying to block something right then. What made me try to block? What am I trying to block out? Why am I trying to block this? It gives us an opportunity to really take a look at what we're doing, how we're feeling, what's happening, what we're blocking, the need to release. And sometimes we aren't even aware of those things that we do need to release because we aren't even aware of the fact that we're blocking. So when we can open our minds to be real, when we can open our minds to see how we really are responding, how we really are feeling, what we really are thinking, rather than saying things that sound good, rather than doing things that make us look good, rather than going along to get along, and all those things that we get caught up in sometimes. Let's take a step, let's take a breath and take a step back and just really look at what's on our minds. What have we been thinking about? What do we think about a lot? What are we afraid of? What are we fearful of? What are we doubting? Just what are we loving? It doesn't have to be negative, but if we're closing out something, then that indicates that there's something that we're trying to keep away from us. And so I'm inviting you to open your mind to really look at those things, really look at what's going on with me. What have I been thinking? What's the tenor of my thoughts? What's the tenor of my thoughts been like? What's the tenor of my thoughts been like? And we have to ask that question because we know change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. And when we can really see what the tenor of our thoughts has been, then we can change that. We can replace those thoughts with new thoughts. With new thoughts. You know, the scripture says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds. In religious science, we say, change your thinking, change your life. Same thing. We are transformed by the renewing of our minds. We are transformed by the renewing of our thoughts. We are transformed. And our lives change as we begin to change our thinking. We begin to replace those lower thoughts with higher thoughts as we continue to move forward. That's what keeps us open. That's what keeps us open. And the more open we are, the more blessings we receive. And the more blessings we receive, the more blessings we are able to give out. And we are able to be in that circular pattern of giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. What's going out from us is coming back to us. And we always want good to come back to us. The only way that can happen is that we're giving it out. We always want kindness to come back to us. The only way that can happen is that it's going out from us. And love and kindness require openness. Love and kindness require openness. They always require the same thing, openness. We have to be open. We have to be loving. We have to have a place in our hearts to love those that we love and care about, as well as those who disturb us. And each of us, I'm sure, has somebody who disturbs us. We have somebody on this planet or some situation that disturbs us. And so what we have to do is be willing to open our hearts so that we can love those who disturb us. And so I mentioned just then, opening our hearts. That's the third thing we do. We open our arms, we open our minds, we open our hearts. We open our arms, we open our minds, we open our hearts. Because once our arms are open, we've created a space, of course, for the mind to start to think differently and operate differently. And that creates a space for the heart to open. That creates a space for our heart to open. For our heart to open. How willing are you to have your heart be open? How willing are you to walk this planet with an open heart? Because that means that we have to make some changes when we walk through life with an open heart. We have to walk through life with an open heart. If we're going to walk through life with an open heart, we have to be willing to walk without judgment. We have to be willing to walk without criticism. We have to be willing to walk without gossip. We have to be willing to walk without resentment. We have to be willing to walk without guilt and anger. We have to be willing to walk without self-doubt and beating up on ourselves a lot. We have to be willing to walk without grudges, holding grudges. We have to be willing to walk with open hearts. And when we walk with open hearts, we begin to see God everywhere. And I was about to ask you the question, how many God sightings have you seen lately? How many God sightings do you see in a day? And then I want to remind you, if you can count the God sightings that you see, you are looking. If you can count the God sightings, you aren't looking very hard. You aren't being very open, because God is everywhere present. God is everywhere present. And all we got to do is look in any direction and we see God. But we have to be open to that. Our hearts have to be open to that. And so just keep in mind, when we start going through our days looking for God sightings, every second we'd be, look, it's not just the sunset. It's not just a sunrise. It's not just beautiful blue sky. It's not just whatever we see in nature, beautiful flowers or whatever we see in nature. Yes, those are God sightings. And looking at each other is a God sighting. Looking at each other is a God sighting. Looking at people that who really disturb us, that's a God sighting too. But we gotta be willing to look at it. We gotta be willing to explore. We gotta be willing to be open. We gotta be willing to expand our awareness, to expand our consciousness, to expand our ability to see God everywhere. Our ability to see God everywhere. And that gets pretty hard sometimes, particularly with things that are going on right now. When we look at the situation in Afghanistan, can we really see God there? Can we really see God in the things that are going on? Do we really know there's a God sighting? Yes, I've heard people, and I heard people say, over the last couple of days, the pictures of the baby who was being passed over the wall in that crowd of people, the baby that the soldiers were taking, that was a God sighting. That was a God sighting. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. But everything we see there is a God sighting. And we have to be able to look at it through an open heart, through the eyes of an open heart. These are the things that we have to really, really be willing to do, is to be open-hearted. You know, I had the experience just yesterday of talking to my daughter, which I do every day. But I had the experience of talking to her, and I was sharing with her some strong feelings I was having about a particular situation that's sort of recurring. And I was very upset about something that had happened. And for me, it felt like my level of upset was not consistent with whatever the situation was. But I still was upset. You know, we can't rationalize those things. I was upset about it, and I was telling her about it. And bless her heart, she didn't sigh. She didn't verbally sigh. I could feel the sigh over the phone. But she finally just said one thing. She just said one thing that was like, she reminded me of something that had happened in the past when I had had an experience similar to this in the past. And all of a sudden it was like a weight lifted. All of a sudden I realized, I said, wow, do you know what you just said? That reminded me of the feeling that I had had in the past when a similar kind of situation had come up. But I didn't tie the two together. I just was in the throes, in the thick of that feeling. And it was very upsetting, and it was very, very painful. And it was very heart-wrenching. And of course, she sort of irritated me, but you know, that's not unusual for us to irritate each other the way we do. But when she said it, I wanted to argue, but immediately I knew. And we are practitioners for each other. She's my practitioner, I'm her practitioner. So I said to her, oh my God, that was just a practitioner moment. Thank you so much. Because when she said that, I was able to immediately trace that feeling that I was having right then, that was so strong and so painful, to trace it back to a previous situation, one that I had not even thought about in a long, long time, one that I would never have tied to this particular situation. But as soon as she said that, I was able to trace the feeling back. And as I did, all those feelings dropped away. All that pain dropped away. All that anger dropped away. All that sense of betrayal dropped away. It just faded into the nothingness from whence it had come. Because immediately, with me opening my heart and recognizing, and my mind, and recognizing that, this is old stuff. This is old stuff. That was then, this is now. That has nothing to do with this. But you know what? We get caught up in the then and the now. We get caught up in that stuff all the time. And so what I'm inviting you to do is to be open, so that we can be aware, be open to the feelings that we have. Don't try to block them. Don't get stuck in them, and particularly when they're out of proportion to whatever it is that's going on. That's a real good sign that we need to step back and open our hearts. And as we open our hearts, we can move into a place of forgiveness. As we open our hearts, we can move into a place of releasing. We can move into a place of letting go of resentment. We can move into a place of letting go of judgment. We can move into a place of opening up to God, of opening our arms, of opening up to God, of opening our arms. And as we open up to God, we open up to ourselves. And as we open up to God, we open to ourselves, and we open to each other. And that's what's important for us to do. So I invite you to open wide your heart, open wide your mind, open wide your arms, open wide your entire being to unconditional love, so that we get to practice and to be premeditated kindness and unconditional love. We get to be. So my encouragement for you today is to stay wide open. Stay wide open. And when you find that you're not, just open your arms and take a deep breath. Stay wide open. And when we are wide open, God can just rush in, can just rush through, because we've created that space. We've created that space for the free flow of God in our lives as our lives. So let's take a deep breath in this moment. Arms open, minds open, hearts open. Let's move into prayer. And so just moving into that place of knowing and sensing and feeling the presence of God. Just knowing that that presence of God is the only presence, that presence of God is the only life, that presence of God is the only mind, that presence of God is the only source. That presence of God that is the only is my very life. It is the life of each of us here this day. And so as we take a deep breath in, I'm recognizing that this breath is the only breath. The only breath. The only breath is the breath of God. God is the breath. And so we allow that free flow of the breath in and through our bodies and in through our entire beingness in this moment. And just knowing that this onlyness is my life and the life of each of us here this day, from this place of awareness, I can speak the word for each of us this day, speaking a word of openness, speaking a word of openness and availability and accessibility, speaking the word yes, yes to openness and accessibility, openness to God. And as we open up, we release and let go of those things that would block. We release and let go of resistance of any kind, release and let go of fear of any kind, doubt of any kind. We release and let go of anything that would block, resentment, grudges, anxiety, guilt, whatever the case may be. We release that and let it go. And we open our hearts and we allow the free flow of spirit to heal those hearts that are broken. We allow the free flow of spirit to replace anything that we feel that may have been lost in any way. We allow the free flow of spirit to comfort the broken heart. We allow the free flow of spirit to heal the body temple, to flow freely through each cell, organ, tissue, function, system of our body temples. Healing, making whole, being itself in and through and as our bodies, in and through and as our bodies of affairs. We let the free flow of spirit flow through as abundance and prosperity and all needs met, knowing that that free flow of spirit shows up as whatever it is we may need. That's how God shows up, as whatever it is we may need, whatever we name it, whether it be health or money or relationships or peace of mind or joy, whatever it is, God shows up as that thing itself. And so as we open our hearts and open our minds and open our entire being, we allow that free flow of spirit to flow through each of us and remind us that we are whole, we are perfect, we are complete just as we are. That all things are made new as this free flow of spirit moves through each of us. And so as we open ourselves up this day, I pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer this day. You may speak their names silently, but you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is in the midst. I know that God is right where each person is. I know that God is God in the midst of everything, in the midst of every situation and every circumstance. This prayer goes out to the situation and the people in Afghanistan, in Haiti, those who are experiencing destruction and devastation and loss. This prayer goes out to any place where there's unrest and chaos. This prayer goes out to every possible place. This prayer goes out to our government officials, knowing that they are guided and directed from on high, that there is that power and that presence within each of them, guiding and directing them to make decisions that are for the highest and best for all concerned, to make decisions and to make choices that are for the highest and best of the collective good. I know that guidance and direction are available to all. And I know that openness is happening in places that people didn't even know openness could happen, where they could just be open to change, open to newness, open to love, open to kindness, open to healing and wholeness. And so I just say thank you, Father, Mother God, in this moment for the blessings of our lives. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for the healing that's happening on this planet, in every aspect of life on this planet and to this planet itself. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for everything. For everything. Thank you. With an open heart, with open arms, with an open mind, I simply allow it to be. Simply allow it to be, knowing that all is well, all is God, and so it is.